Hey everyone, welcome to Strange Stories, where we explore near-death experiences and supernatural stories from people who've had a glimpse of the other side. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Without further ado, let's get to the story of the day. It occurred during the summer of 1996. I was 20 years old at the time, and I was on my way to a public event near a swimming lake. I was with my then boyfriend and a few others. Around 10 p.m., it was a pleasant warm summer evening. My boyfriend and I had eaten at a restaurant. Following the lunch, he inquired about the weird red dots on my neck. I'd known I had allergies since I was a child, but I'd never experienced any skin issues. We were around 200 meters away from the festival when I became dizzy. When we arrived at the festival's entrance, I passed out. I recall seeing blackness in front of my eyes and felt as if my legs gave away. I was still able to hold myself up by reaching for my boyfriend's jacket. He turned around when he noticed my eyes had gone backwards. Another friend approached from behind and grabbed me. They dragged me outside onto the street, placed me on the ground, and dialed 911. None of this occurred to me. Suddenly, I heard buzzing, followed by a soft plop. I exited my body through a hole in my head. This happened on its own, without any intervention. I was encircled by a black nothingness which was unsettling. I needed to reorient myself and was conscious that even though I couldn't see my body, I was still myself with all of my feelings, personality traits, and ideas. It didn't matter if you had a body or not. I felt terrific, light, and liberated. I was pure awareness. I had a clear head, a strong determination, and razor-sharp insight. I also possessed powers that are not feasible in everyday life. Nothing but dark infinity surrounded me. This blackness was never dark, frightening, or empty. On the contrary, I felt better and better. I felt more myself than ever before, and I knew my body was back on Earth. I kept getting closer and closer to it. I was also curious as to how I knew this. I realized I had peeled off my earthly body like a pullover before retiring to bed. I took off my role that I had been playing in this earthly life, much like a movie role. And now, I'm back to myself, which feels great. The void was simply endless. There was no time or space as we know it on Earth, but everything was perfectly normal and strangely familiar. I began to move through this endless black space. With my thoughts, I could practically beam myself into this infinity. I want to go over there, I thought, and I was there. I was flying in and out of the black universe. I could also modify my own size. I shrank myself at times and expanded myself to near infinity at others. That was a fantastic feeling, and I kept trying new things. I was taken with the immensity and infinity. I felt indescribably well, safe, and liberated. This was complete freedom and the most natural thing in the world, like if I'd never done anything else before. That's my home, my original being, the original existence of all of us, the home of all our souls, I realized. I came from here, and this is where I belong. We all came from here, and we shall all return. A wonderfully familiar sense of home and belonging completely enveloped me. Everything was one with me. There are no words on the planet that can completely explain this profoundly ingrained knowledge, memory, and treasured sense of home. This shining back and forth with the ease of my thoughts, the expansion, but also relaxing and reveling in the nice sensation, went on for quite a while, during which I was conscious that I was still moving up and up. If I had to relate it to something in the real world, I'd say a 45-degree angle. I could travel in this infinite expanse, yet I was also directed and constantly dragged up, as if on autopilot. A quiet tune sounded from the depths of the black universe at about mid-height. It was initially far away and difficult to see, but it piqued my interest. The sounds were becoming closer and louder until they eventually reached me and permeated me. I'd never heard anything like it before. It had a highly rhythmic, lyrical, and ethereal feel to it. I thought the music was weird at first, but as the sounds and rhythms infiltrated me, I became part of the music and began to merge with it. I began to move in time with the music. I was moving in ways I'd never moved before in response to music. I felt great, and this condition could have lasted forever. I had become one with the music and was dancing my way through the world. This phase lasted quite a while until the music gradually went away. It seemed as though the music had only been localized to one layer, and I was now leaving this sphere by climbing higher up. I could no longer control how I moved. I couldn't tell you how fast I was going because I was on autopilot and still flying uphill. I was getting excited because I was getting closer to my destination. It felt like the moment before crossing the finish line. But it was as if my recollection of my current life faded as I drifted away from my body. The ride slowed and then came to a halt. I was annoyed because I wanted to keep going. I knew that beyond this line lay happiness. It was our soul's home, my cherished home, my origin, everything I am, a place of absolute happiness, simply everything. I tried several times to beam myself through the barrier, but to no avail. While I was struggling with this, a voice emerged from the depths of the universe. It began muffled and distant, but it approached quickly and became louder until it was close to me and resounded from all sides around and through me. It was a man's voice, clear and distinct, strong and commanding. "B, you can't continue here," replied the voice. "This is your final destination." I was curious as to who was speaking to me, but I didn't think to query the voice. I was also curious as to how this voice recognized my moniker. Rather than asking, I said, "But I want to." I was taken aback by my need to establish my will in the face of such a forceful presence. "You cannot stay. You must return," whispered the voice again. "Wild horses couldn't bring me there," I exclaimed, despite my disbelief. And I became concerned about my statements. Yet in this moment, I truly felt this way. The thought of turning around and returning to my old life was terrifying, especially when home was so close. I can't say I saw what happened next with human eyes the way I do here on Earth. It was more of an inner sight. "B, B," I heard my partner say as he held my legs up. Suddenly, I was inside of him, in his chest, experiencing his anguish as well as all of his love for me. This sensation was both fantastic and overwhelming. I had never felt anything like this before or since. It was a feeling of tremendous love. All of his love across the ages melted into one feeling, as did the complete love of the cosmos. "He loves you and is waiting for you," the voice stated. "He'll get over it and live his life without me," I reasoned. I was concerned about the severity of my decision. Then my parents appeared in my inner eye, and a voice stated, "Your parents need you, and you must look after them." I considered my mother, and realized that she would need time to recover from my loss, but I was also hopeful that she would accept my decision. So I replied, "With time, she'll overcome this, and both of them will be okay without me." My decision was simple. I wanted to cross the border and return home. "No, you have to go back," the voice said quietly and firmly. "You must still finish your work." This was beyond my comprehension. What should I do? What type of jargon is this? What kind of responsibilities? Sorry for the disappointment. When we leave our bodies, we're not enlightened, but we retain all aspects of our identity. My comments were obviously heard, but no response was received. For a time, the statement, "You still have to do your work," echoed in my head, and I wondered what it meant. It seemed like I was assigned a task. I didn't get an answer, so I tried again and again to cross the invisible barrier, but to no avail. There was a type of push, like being pushed back with compressed air, and suddenly I was rushing down towards the earth and my body. I felt a very breaking sensation. I felt rejected and abandoned. I desired earnestly that the exquisite music would appear again at half height, where it had previously appeared. I'd give anything to be able to blend with those noises again. but I kept moving towards the ground. Slowly, I recognized that I needed to return to my old life. The trip immediately slowed, and I realized I was hovering just above my body. Finally, I returned to my body. It was dark, but it was a different kind of darkness than the infinite of the universe. It was dark, and I felt little and befuddled. It was extremely narrow at the same time. I felt like I was squished into a sausage and wondered, is this so narrow because I'm too thin? It's always narrow, even if your width is 1 meter, I replied. This constriction seemed like a sharp bodily agony to me. I also got the worst case of homesickness you can imagine, as well as absolute despair, thinking, now I have to live this life till it's over. This concept depressed me greatly. I didn't know this kind of feeling in my prior life, and I haven't had it to the same amount since, but it was horrible at the time, and I knew that if I couldn't bring myself to combat this gloomy sensation with optimistic thoughts, I'd be depressed for the rest of my life. This appeared to be a terrifying mental vision. What an emotional whirlwind. My home had just been within my grasp, and I'd been looking forward to heaven. And now, I was as dejected and sad as I'd never been before. A solution was required. I couldn't go on like that. So I attempted to summon some bravery. I scoured my emotions for positive actions until I found some. Memories from my current existence surfaced, generating hope. My life had been going swimmingly until now. It had even been lovely. Then I remembered my friend, his love and his dread, which I'd been feeling up there. I wanted to tell him, I'm here, and I'm feeling great. This mood inspires me. Suddenly, the sense of sadness vanished. This made me happy, and I was now ready to wake up. Following this, there was a brief moment of silence, followed by what sounded like swooshing in my ears. This was the first true physical feeling on Earth. I realized that my soul was once again inextricably linked to my body. When this fusion occurred, I could literally feel it. The ringing in my ears became more intense. My biological circuit had returned to me. Then the loudness went away, and I could clearly hear the noises of the celebration. The event was still fresh in my mind, and suddenly, the recollection of the prior circumstance in which I fainted returns. My eyes were still closed, but I recognized who was seated beside me. It was one of my friends. She took my hand in hers. Did I talk or move strangely? I asked, because I'd been talking and dancing during my encounter. I was worried that I'd acted strangely during my blackout. No, you were just sleeping there, he said. This made me feel better. I merely had a fancy dream, I explained. There was a voice speaking to me and really moving music. Yes, let yourself completely wake up, she urged. When my partner noticed that I was awake, he let my legs fall. They collapsed on the rough ground. He appeared to be in shock, and some of his friends were escorting him away. In general, being awake was a huge relief. I could see the ambulance and that the paramedics were on their way to my house. That was something I wanted to avoid. I was okay. I found the entire situation about myself to be awful. As a result, I was sitting up. I observed that I was completely clear, more so than ever before, as though some sort of cleansing or clarifying had occurred. My pals were upset because I was sitting up, but I didn't care. So I stood up completely, which caused the others to worry. My partner returned as well, and he wanted to help me get back on track. I couldn't even persuade him that I was fine. I even felt fantastic. I wanted to go to the festival and have a good time. To commemorate my excellent health, freshly acquired lucidity, and experience. This, however, would not occur. You should take her home, my boyfriend's pal said. So he drove me to my house. I was driving along, looking out the open vehicle window at the night sky, and I exclaimed, I've just been up there.